Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Praxis Speech Sister podcast. I am your host, Melanie Evans. I am a certified speech language pathologist and certified mindset coach, here to help you on your journey to passing the SLP Praxis exam and embody your envisioned success as a certified SLP. If you are new here, welcome to the family. I am so thankful that you are here. I would love to lead you to the show notes with some free resources with strategies and tips that I use to help me prepare for the Praxis exam, master my mindset, and achieve a score of 172. So today's episode is about identifying your personal strength. On this show, you might hear me talk about identifying your strengths when it comes to test content and the subjects that will be on the exam. But I want to take a step back and talk about how we can identify our personal strengths. So, the strengths that make us us. What just came to my mind is I have a clinical student. I'm a clinical supervisor at a university, and I had a student today. I like to do intro interviews with my students so that way I can gauge their expectations for the semester and also make sure that I'm serving them to the best of their abilities. So, one question that I like to ask is, what are your strengths and what are your weaknesses? And they actually might be listening to this podcast right now, but trust me, you are not alone. And I'll tell you why here in a moment. So I said, "What are your strengths?" They said, "Ooh, I honestly can't think of my strengths. I honestly don't know my strengths, but once you get to the weaknesses part, I can definitely tell you a whole lot." And I know it was a joke, and at the same time, it probably doesn't feel very good to have to say that about yourself. So we're able to laugh at ourselves all the time, but that brings me back to what I always like to say, whose team are you really on? So what I asked her is an assignment that I will be giving to you all at the end of the podcast. And this is how I know she's not alone. Because I came home and had a coaching session and they told me the same thing. I don't really know my strength. And I'm like, I'm looking at you right now. I'm telling her this. I'm looking at you right now and I'm seeing so many strengths. So that's why this episode is geared around learning how we can identify our own personal strengths. Let's go. Okay. First of all, I want you to think about, when was the last time you patted yourself on the back? So in previous episodes, I talk about the bestie method when I say, talk to yourself like you would your best friend. Talk to yourself like you would as if you're your biggest cheerleader. When was the last time you pat yourself on the back? I'll give you a great example. So you might be listening to this and you might be a viewer of the Pediatric Speech Sister Show. And that's where I actually interview with different guests about ways that we can improve our cultural responsiveness in speech pathology. And also, just by the way, shameless plug, if you haven't listened or watched the Pediatric Speech Sister Show, I'll go ahead and put those things in the show notes as well. But one thing I do, and I notice I do, if I ask a question that's just really good, or at least in my opinion, it's a really good question, I'm just like, yes, Melanie, that was a great question. All the time I do that. And I had to. Why? Because what I noticed what it did was it boosted my self-confidence in the interview. All the time I'm interviewing with expert guests who've been in the career longer than I have, or who have more experience than I have, or who just overall are bomb and just really admirable. And so sometimes I can feel small because I'm human. So what I have to do is remind myself who I am. That person who I look in the mirror, that person who I look in the mirror and realize that I love this person in the mirror. And this person in the mirror has made it so far and has made it so far in this field and has accomplished so much up to this point. So if you are listening to this, you are most likely in a master's program or have graduated master's program, or maybe you are in your undergraduate career. Wherever you are on your journey, you've accomplished so much. So when was the last time that you pat yourself on the back? Take a second and think about that. Another thing I like to say is I think that perfectionists, and I can say this as a recovering perfectionist, I think that perfectionists like to brag about how we can be our own biggest critics. Oh, I'm always my own biggest critic. Like it's a accessory or a personality trait. But I think that that's really real. And I talk about the subconscious mind a lot, but it's very harmful when we are giving into those limiting beliefs. Even saying I'm my own biggest critic is a limiting belief, right? So starting today, I would love for us to just stop glorifying being our own biggest critics or glorifying not having any strength. This isn't the time to be humble, especially if you are someone who struggles with your self confidence and self esteem. This is not the time to be humble. It's okay to find pride in the gifts that God has given you. It's okay to find pride in that. So that's the second thing I have to mention. So, I'm going to give you some more tips to help you cultivate your overall self esteem and create a positive reflection of yourself that you have of yourself. So, one thing I recommend is to identify your personal strengths throughout the week. So, this could be something as simple as, let's say you're going to the store and you open up the door for somebody. That's a strength. That means that you are kind. That means that you're able to build a quick connection with somebody. That's a strength. Write that down. Every small strength that you find, write it down. Maybe it's something like you made your supervisor laugh. Write that down. Maybe you noticed that your clinical student finally said the R sound correctly. Write that down. You're like, dang, I'm a bomb speech pathologist. I'm a bomb clinician. I just got him to say the TH sound. I just got him to correct a sound substitution. I don't care if it was 1 out of 50 trials and he finally did it. That's amazing. He did that with your guidance. Okay, pat yourself on the back. Number 2, write down positive feedback that people give to you. So, in other episodes, I'll talk about the spiritual laws, but one of the spiritual laws is the law of mirrors, meaning that we are all reflections of each other. So, if someone is coming up to you and they're saying, "You have such a radiant personality," and a lot of times, we are shy or try to be humble and we're like, "Oh, stop, like you're amazing," and or, "Oh my gosh, my hair's not even done today," or we say whatever. Just gratefully receive that compliment because it's most likely true. And then after you give them a great thank you, or what I like to say, and I actually got this from my mentor, Dr. Valencia Perry, I received that. Thank you. I received that. Thank you. Even if subconsciously I'm working on believing it for myself, the fact that someone is able to say that to me, I trust that God used them as a vessel. So, if someone is giving you a compliment or is giving you some sort of praise, especially if it's a close friend or if it's a stranger or a supervisor or professor, even a family member, write that down. I actually have a note in my phone of positive feedback. So, every time I even get positive feedback from my graduate clinicians, someone was like, "You're a cool supervisor." I'm like, "I'm gonna write that down. Thank you so much, because I try. I try to be a cool supervisor, so thank you for saying that." So whatever it is, write that down for yourself. Last but not least, talk to God. So especially if you are feeling a little low on yourself, or if you're someone like me who needs those positive affirmations, talk to God. Now, in other episodes, I'll talk about intuition and how you can discern the voice of God and how that's really actually important when it comes to taking the Praxis exam and going with your gut, figuring out what the question is really asking. We'll talk more about that in future episodes. But just pray. And it could be as simple as, "Hi, God," even if you haven't talked to Him for a while. "Hi, God, I know I haven't talked to you for a while. I just got done listening to this episode by Melanie. And she recommended that I ask you for help on how I can build my confidence. And if I'm being honest, which this is just some quick prayer 101, being honest with God, which is also being honest with yourself and your highest self, moves mountains, moves mountains. So just say, if I'm being honest, I'm feeling very low confident, right? I'm thinking about times in my past when I failed. I'm thinking about times in my childhood when people said I was worthless or made me feel worthless. And now I'm here as an adult, and I can't identify a lot of strengths about myself. But I know your word says that there are so many strengths about myself. Your word says that I'm beautiful and wonderfully made. And if you put me here on this earth, that must mean I'm pretty special, right? I'd like to believe that. I choose to believe that. So, God, will you show me some of my strengths? Will you help me identify some strengths? And God, will you move my spirit to write them down? And will you guide me to self acceptance? That prayer right there will do so much for your spirit, your mind, your soul, your body. And then at that point, it's in God's hands. Just be open to receive. So at that point, when I prayed that prayer to God, now, mind you, I have been doing a lot of meditation and a lot to strengthen my intuition. And we'll talk about intuition in other episodes, but I do actually feel and hear and get that intuitive hit for the answer in my strengths. And and I have written them down. But for you, if you're not at that point, well, first of all, still look out for those intuitive senses. So I'm clairaudient, so sometimes I actually hear the voice of God. So you might hear it, or you might hear it from other people. Again, the law of mirrors. Or maybe you'll go back and look at journal entries where you've actually cheered yourself on. Or maybe he'll lead you to a Bible verse. Or maybe he'll send you a message in your spirit. Or maybe God will send you a message in your dreams. So just be open to that. Maybe you'll watch another podcast episode of another YouTuber or listen to another podcast and someone's hyping up someone that fits your profile. You'll know, your spirit will know who it's for. So I hope that this episode helped you. The main idea here is to uplift ourselves and to be able to identify your personal strengths. So here's some soul work for you. After taking these tips in mind, especially when it comes to asking God, the higher power source, our creator, the divine, what your personal strengths are, write them down. And I challenge you to find a personal strength once a week. Every Friday, you should have a new strength in your folder. So I am recording this at the end of January, and you should have a little less than 52 weeks. I'm working on my math skills. You should have a little bit less than 52 entries by the end of this year. Again, I'm so thankful that you all came to this episode. If you liked this episode, please like, share, and subscribe. Send it to your classmates. And also check me out on Praxis Speech Sister on Instagram. You can send me a DM. I would just love to hear from you. Until then, I'll see you in the next episode. Bye.